tell you every time we're going to go to a shot, or are you going to tell when we go to a shot?
Well, you can.
Okay.
That way we'll know that we're going to go directly into it. This is sort of what you call ab lib when you do it on public television.
She said you can't go directly into it because you have to give it that you have to give them time to cue it up.
Yeah, but what you'll do is talk comfortably. Oh, cool. And welcome to another week with Center to the Left, your progressive view of Missoula and beyond. This week with me here in the studio we have Toni Daniels from the University Students for a Free Tibet, and also Julia Elliot, who just completed a film called Windhorse, at the that's being shown this week and next, or it will have been this past weekend, this week at the Crystal Video. Center to the Left works on a whole bunch of different issues. We're very progressive, and we invite all of the viewing studio audience to come down and join us. We're here on Sundays filming our show, which is shown at 8 p.m. on Sunday and rebroadcast again at 5:30 on Monday. MCAT is a very wonderful facility where you can do your own programming like we are doing, and they have a great staff, and we get wonderful support here for our program. So today, without further ado, we're going to talk about Free Tibet. And with us, once again, from campus, we have Toni, and she is going to tell us about what just occurred on campus last week. What did you folks put together?
Well, March 10th was the 40th anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising Day, and nationwide we had refugee camps all over the United States, particularly in front of the embassies of the and Chinese consulates. And from there we also hosted about 9 Tibetan monks from the Ganden Monastery, and they constructed a sand mandala in the UC. And
how long did that take? By the way?
It took 3 days to complete, and on the 4th day they destroyed it and put the sand in the Clark Fork River as a ceremony. And then they also performed teachings at the Osel Buddhist Center here in town, and they left Monday morning.
Oh, so how would people get a hold of people on campus if they were interested in more information about events?
Well, they're welcome to come to any of our meetings. We meet Tuesday night at 7 o'clock in the UC room 216. Or, you know, they're welcome to give me a phone call also. So
I was on campus this last week, and I noticed this funny looking, what looked like a Native American hogan or something that was there. Can you tell us a little bit about how that relates to the Tibetan monks? Or are you talking about the refugee camp in the Oval? Yeah.
Yeah, we just kind of tried to construct a refugee camp. We couldn't really find our classic Charlie Brown tent anywhere in town, so we threw up a tarp and tried to build our own and put out information on the significance of the 40th anniversary of the first uprising in Tibet.
Oh, and we'll probably talk about some of the upcoming events later on in the program, but right now I want to introduce to everybody Julia Elliot, who just got done with filming and producing the movie Windhorse. And I ran into her as Amazing Miracles happened Friday night at the Crystal Theater, and I said, hey, how would you like to talk about Free Tibet on our show and why you put together this movie Windhorse, you know, and what is the significance of Windhorse, the name for your show that's being viewed at the Crystal right now?
Well, the film is about a current day family in living in Tibet and living under the Chinese occupation. And the wind horses, if you want, we can see a little clip so you can see what the wind horses. Not yet. Okay. The wind horses refer to little bits of paper that Tibetans traditionally have offered up to the gods, especially up on mountain passes, and they're small pieces of paper that carry the Tibetans' prayers up to the gods. And we thought of the wind horses as symbolic of the hopes and prayers that the Tibetans have that their country will one day become free. And so the movie begins and ends with these images of the wind horses floating up into the air.
Great, and we have this clip that is almost not quite ready yet to show of the wind horses. Okay, so what got you ready, interested in Tibet in the first place, and you know the struggle that is going on for the last 40 years, I guess?
Well, I started studying about Tibet during college. I went on a program over in Nepal and India and Tibet, where I originally went just because I was very interested in learning about Buddhism, and I really enjoyed the culture and the religion and the people, and was very moved by the plight of the Tibetan people. And so I just continued to study and continued to work in that area ever since college. And
tourists are just free to, isn't this under like Chinese occupation? And
it is under Chinese occupation, but it is possible to travel to Tibet. So it is possible to go.
How many times have you been to Tibet now?
I've been, I'd say, let's see, 3 times.
3 different times?
Yep.
And is this, where in Tibet did you film Windhorse? Yeah, right.
We shot most of Windhorse actually in Nepal, but we did shoot a significant number of scenes in Tibet, and we had to shoot there clandestinely because it is illegal to make a film in Tibet. And so we shot there with a small video camera that looks just like a tourist camera, but we did shoot a fair number of scenes, almost all of the exterior scenes in the film, and some of the scenes with actors as well were shot in Tibet.
So do you think we're ready to show you the wind horses? Not quite yet. Okay. Well, when we actually get to that, I guess maybe I'll edit it in. Anyway, so this part of the movie, what is the general idea behind, you know, that is like the purpose of this movie, Wind Horses?
Well, we made this film. It's very much this film is very much a political message, and the purpose in making this film was to educate people about what is going on currently today in Tibet and with the Tibetan situation. And oh, it looks like they're ready to show the clip, so we can show you the clip of the wind horses.
For although we Tibetans are an oppressed people, we are not a conquered people.
So where in Tibet was this particular?
That shot was actually filmed in Nepal, very close to the Tibetan border, in a region called Mustang. And it's very beautiful. It's the terrain. It's part of the Tibetan plateau, so it looks just like Tibet, and the people who live up there are Tibetan of Tibetan ethnicity, and it was really beautiful. And it was a magical place to shoot, actually.
Oh, cool. And what are some of the messages that are actually put on these? Is that like something they share with people?
I think it's a prayer for compassion, but we really use the wind horses in the film as more of a metaphor for the hopes of Tibetans that someday they can be free and have the autonomy to make their own decisions and practice their religion in the way that they would like to.
Yes, and they, in the 40 years that they've been oppressed, you know, how great has been the tragedy, Toni?
Well, the numbers that we have are about almost 11 years old, but as of 1988, from when China first invaded in 1950, 1.2 million Tibetans have been killed as a direct result of the Chinese occupation, with most of those occurring within the first 10 years after the Dalai Lama fled, which was in 1959, because that's when most of the uprisings and stuff took place.
So 1.2 million people?
Yes, which is 1/5 of their population.
Yeah. And how do people nowadays feel about the ongoing occupation of the Chinese? Are they communicating, you know?
We get a lot of mixed messages from people. Some people really support us and support the cause. Some people don't. They think that we're just out there because China's communist, and so it's kind of hard. But, you know, the American government runs off of the capitalist society in which we really kind of favor China for, so it makes it even harder to try and get a message across.
Oh. So did you find, I'm going back and forth here, but Julie, did you find a lot of people were curious about, you know, this filming that you were doing and the message you were trying to portray in this show?
People in America?
No, well, America's the other part of it, obviously, but the people, you know, when you were in Tibet or Nepal and doing the filming itself.
Well, Tibetans were we had to be very secretive about the filming, but Tibetans in general are, always incredibly pleased when Americans are trying to spread the message about what's going on in Tibet or doing any sort of action that supports their cause. So, yeah, the Tibetans we worked with were really wonderful. They were very supportive, and they worked really hard for the film. And yeah, and in America, certainly the film has been really well received, but it's also very frustrating, I feel, particularly among my generation, that a lot of people are not necessarily very interested in seeing political films, and that's a very frustrating thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And do you think that the political nature of this is portrayed by any particular scenes that you might have brought here today to share with the audience that we're... Yeah,
the film in particular, one of the issues that we really talk about is the oppression of religious freedom, and the sort of catalyst for all the action in the film is that the Chinese government bans photographs of the Dalai Lama, and this is based on a true event that actually took place a few years before we started filming. The Chinese government did put a ban on the Dalai Lama's photos, and it led to a lot of unrest and political protest. And I can show a clip now of that event in the film when the Dalai Lama's photograph is removed.
Okay.
다른 안소리 정 최대지네 유자지 저서왜 안에 내려와라야 안에 가만 나시 녀들 마야게 안에 안서 공부지 보지 싫어나 시에 아니 한다데 달리 로즈루가 당카자리 루라 하고 제거가 맞아 달리 라미 빨간데 카타 진장 소소 소강 타나 마다다 제기 나라야 되네 셈이죠 달라시 미네 의미죠 맞아 생기 나라야 삼미죠 가시 공라 시바는 라다르 마제바이나 나니 사변지 통 예와 사변 동주이 상내 천상 아주 세상 안주 림바 코미가들 아니 두저나 시에
근데 그걸 아시죠?
So who are the people who are they're showing in this clip, and what the officers, are they like Chinese?
Well, actually, in Tibet, many times the officers can also be Tibetan, and the officer that we use in this clip is actually a Tibetan. That I think that's one of the ploys that the Chinese government uses, is to enlist Tibetans in the military and in the police, and they pay a good salary, and so Tibetans, in order to survive, it's very attractive for them to actually join the military, join the police. So so the officer here is actually Tibetan.
Oh, he's actually Tibetan. And are these people protesting, or are they trying to hide the photo, or?
No, in this clip it's just the officer is coming to let them know that now they have put a ban on the photo, and so they must remove it. And it was a really difficult scene to shoot, because in the beginning we were working in a nunnery in Nepal, where all the nuns are born in Nepal and they've never been to Tibet. And so when we first started shooting the scene, they didn't really take it very seriously. They just didn't really have a sense of what was going on, and they would sort of giggle every time the police officer came in, and they would sort of giggle when the photograph was taken down. And the co-director, who was Tibetan, had to stop the shooting, and he went forward to them and he said, listen, think about how it would feel if you were in Tibet, and think about how it would feel if you were a nun and you were not allowed to practice your religion, and you were not allowed to see a photograph of the Dalai Lama, and think how lucky you are to be here in Nepal with the freedom to practice your religion. And in the very next take, every single one of the nuns just started bawling and, started shouting and saying, don't take our picture away, we want our Dalai Lama, and so all the nuns started crying, and the co-director started crying, and I started crying, and the cinematographer started crying, and we had to take a break, and everybody to dry their eyes, and we had to redo the take over and over again, and we actually had to ask the nuns not to get quite so emotional, because they were shouting so much, and so it turned out very, very well, but it was really difficult to shoot, because they really got into it, and it wasn't just about making a movie. It was very personal. It was very real to them.
It was almost like they had to lose their own religion, huh?
Right.
So do we have that clip of the? Okay. So
should I explain the next clip?
Yeah.
One of the nuns, due to this ban, the police come back to the nunnery to check and make sure that the photographs have been removed. And one of the nuns is found with a photograph, and this is sort of, one of the next events that moves the action along in the film.
So, do they consider the photographs at this point contraband then?
Yes,
and it's like you can be arrested and
They're
put
illegal
away?
at this point, yeah.
And what would happen, you know, I mean, just so the audience knows, if you're arrested, is this like, what would be the fine or the jail time or something for?
You know, I don't know. Tony, do you know exactly what the jail time is?
You know, from what we have for jail times and stuff, they're usually minimally 8 years, maximum.
For one photograph?
Yeah, just for anything really. You know, currently, like just a Tibetan refugee went into Tibet to do a documentary film work and was arrested for being a spy and got sentenced to 18 years.
Wow.
And he was just photographing his traditional dances. So, I mean, they could be as hard as they want or as lenient as they want. So.
Okay, thank you. So are we ready to show the clip now? Okay.
Shato, switch.
So does the nun in this scene, does she know the severity of what has just happened?
Oh yes, all the nuns who protest politically are well aware of what could happen to them and the severity of the sentence that awaits them. But still, they're so moved by their desire for freedom of religion that they're willing to put their lives at risk this way.
And do you think this is a larger statement on the nuns' part about freeing them in Tibet and freeing their country, and besides, I mean, their religion, obviously?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And oftentimes they do protest, you know, not just for freedom of religion, but actually for the freedom of their country.
Well, so how long did filming this movie take? I mean, overall, you know, from maybe the idea of it to actually completing it?
Well, up till this point, it's been almost 4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're on tour with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I can be.
So how long has it been available in America?
It was released. We started in San Francisco just at the beginning of March.
So we're brand new to this, huh?
Yep.
We're fortunate to have you here in Missoula on the show.
Well, I'm very happy to be here in Missoula.
Yeah. So overall, what did you think? I mean, as far as why, the whole idea behind, going out and presenting this to the American public. What is it that you're trying to accomplish?
Well, as I said before, we're really interested in, I mean, our main hope is to educate the American people about what's going on inside Tibet, and particularly what's going on inside Tibet now. I mean, there have been 2 Hollywood films that have been made about Tibet already, and both of them are very good, but I feel as though they really sort of freeze Tibet in time, and they don't really discuss the fact that what happened historically had serious repercussions throughout time and is still a major problem today. And I think they also, in a way, sort of exoticize the Tibetan situation. And we really try hard in this film to make a much more complex picture about what's going on inside Tibet today, and also to show that Tibetans are wonderful people, but they're just like any other people. They have their own problems. They have their own shortcomings, and we just sort of try to show a grittier, more true-to-life picture about what's going on inside the country.
And do you bring this dilemma into your film itself?
Yeah, I can tell a little bit about the plot. The film is about a family living in Lhasa, the capital city of Tibet, and there are 3 main characters. It's one family, and there are 3 main characters. One is the sister in the family, and she is sort of she's sort of sold out a little bit, and in the interest of providing for herself and providing for her family, she has a Chinese boyfriend and is very interested in sort of going along with the Chinese system. The brother in the family has turned Chinese, sort of, I don't know if hatred might be too strong, but has turned Chinese aggression towards Tibetans. He's sort of internalized that, and he has a great deal of self-hate, and he drinks a lot, he hangs out, he's sort of a typical slacker, he doesn't have a job. And both of their lives are changed drastically when their cousin, who is a Buddhist nun, she protests against this ban on the Dalai Lama's photos, which we just showed earlier. And so the film is basically about what the brother and sister decide to do once their cousin is imprisoned for protesting against the ban on the Dalai Lama's photos. And yeah.
And do you have another clip that sort of presents this concept?
Yeah, this clip shows the dilemma that the sister, her name is Dolkar, that she faces when Pema, the cousin, is brought back home. And Pema is brought back home after going to prison. And it's very difficult for Dolkar because she has this Chinese boyfriend, and she's a singer, and she's been given a recording contract through the Chinese government. And as part of the recording contract, she's going to sing a live concert on television. She'll get paid a lot for this. She'll be able to provide for her family. It'll bring her fame and fortune. And so for her, it's a great opportunity. But when her cousin arrives in her house, it places her and her family at danger because they can be seen as being sort of political against the Chinese government. And if her producer finds out about that, he might take away her recording contract. So this clip that I'm about to show is about that conflict that she faces.
So are we ready with?
我赶你晚了半个小时啊！
都部长到了吗？
还没到，出了什么事吗？
没有事。
怎么一回事呢？
没事，我想我还是换衣服吧。服装吧。
周嘎，听我说，这个节目必须要演得很顺利。
段平，我知道我晚了，对不起，好了吗？ 我家里出了点事情。
关于朵基？
不是关于他，没事，你用不着担心。
若卡，怎么了？我能不能帮你？
段平，我能相信你吗？
若卡，你在讲些什么？当然你能相信我。
真的吗？
真的。
昨天晚上，我回家以后，发现我表姐刚从监狱里放出来。她是个尼姑，她被关了几天，她被打得全身是伤。她现在跟我们住在一起，直到她身体恢复健康。段平，她是我表姐，我们不能把她扔在外面不管。况且这又不是什么犯法的事情。段平没什么事儿的。段平，一切都会好的。
好极了，卓卡，唱得真好。
谢谢首长。
你真了不起，还多亏了段平想出这么妙的主意。
谢谢。
啊，明天晚上这儿会有很多党里的高干，我相信你一定会好好的唱的。
是的，我一定好好唱。
这么美丽年轻的一个藏族的姑娘，代表着所有淳朴善良的藏族人民，我肯定你一定会好好的唱的。
If I can say one thing about that clip, one thing that we really try hard to do in the film is to show that it's not the Chinese people that are creating this situation. It's not the Chinese people that are oppressive of the Tibetans, but it's the Chinese government. And so we created this character of the sister's boyfriend, and he is Chinese, and he represents someone who is a good person at heart, but is sort of a pawn of the government system. And he actually really is a hero in the story. And we also try to show that the Tibetan people are not all they're not all politically motivated. They're not all religious, as I think often Westerners sort of idealize them that way. But they often do work with the government, and they often do. They often are part of this system that is very oppressive to their own people. And I don't know, did you want to say anything else about that, Tony?
No, that's okay.
Well, a couple of things. One is that, once again, we want people to know that your video is being shown at the Crystal Theater, and there'll be a number up on the screen. You can call for information about what time it's being shown. The other thing is that I thought from this film, or at least from this clip, people might like to know, what's the employment picture like in Tibet? What, how do people survive, basically?
Do you want to field that question?
Well, from what I understand, I mean, I have never really been to Tibet before, but my understanding is unless you have connections or any form with the Communist Party, it's really hard to get a job. The Chinese government has currently given tax breaks to businesses who want to open up a business, and if they want to have a Tibetan partner with them, but they never say what the percentage of partnership has to be. So you can have a partner, with 2% and you own the 98%, and you still get the tax breaks. So it's kind of hard to say. I know, like at our conferences, most of the young Tibetan children are raised kind of like second-class citizens, and supposedly you could see them, in the corners, pretty much drunk and living off of alcohol and cigarettes, because that's what fills their stomachs. So.
Wow.
And you can really, when you are in Tibet, you can really see the difference between the lifestyles of the Chinese people and the Tibetan people. There's a great disparity, except for the Tibetans who are working with the Chinese government. There's a great disparity between the two, and the Tibetans often protest against the heavier taxes that they have to pay and the more difficulties that they have at trying to find a job.
So what percentage would you say of the population that the Chinese comprise?
Toni might know better than I do.
I don't know the percentage, but I do know that the Chinese citizens in Tibet outnumber the Tibetan citizens in Tibet. So they're already a minority in their own country.
Wow.
And this is really the great, I mean, certainly the lack of freedom of religion, the difficulty in finding work, all these things are incredibly important, but the greatest problem is this influx of Chinese settlers, I think, and I think the Dalai Lama also often says this, but because once there are more Chinese in Tibet than there are Tibetans, there's very little that the Tibetans can do once they're outnumbered, and just having such a huge Chinese presence there just really dilutes the Tibetan culture, the Tibetan religion, and just everything.
So would you say that this is another of the points that your video is bringing to America and showing?
I hope so. I mean, we don't particularly specifically talk about the population transfer of Chinese into Tibet, but I think we try to show as best we can how the Chinese presence in Tibet is really threatening the culture and the religion and the people as a whole.
Wow. And do you think that this has increased over the last few years? We've seen a much greater influx of Chinese people.
Yes, I don't know the numbers exactly, but definitely over the past, I think, 10 years, it's gotten much, much worse. Do you know exact numbers?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know, like, there's a lot of tax breaks with the Chinese government. Yeah, they can have more children, they get tax breaks, and then especially with the Three Gorge Dam being built there, they're moving a lot of people over to Tibet, so it's kind of hard to say number-wise.
So are they giving Tibet land away to Chinese people who relocate there?
Chinese who relocate to Tibet they're giving great, as Toni was saying, they're given great incentives to go to Tibet. I think, yeah, land is probably very cheap. They don't have to pay as high taxes. As she was saying, they can have more kids. So there are great incentives for the Tibetans to go to China.
Okay, and besides the tax incentives and whatnot, is there incentives for the Chinese government to move their own religion into Tibet?
Well, I mean, part of communism is that there should be no religion. So there's no. I guess you could say that the Chinese government moves the religion of communism into the Tibetan region, but really they just would like to put an end to the Tibetan religion, partly because communist philosophy believes that religion poisons the minds of the masses. But I think really their greatest problem with the Tibetan religion is that it's such a strong marker of Tibetan identity. And to allow the Tibetans to practice their religion is to allow them to be themselves. And it's often the monks and nuns, it's usually the monks and nuns who protest. And to sort of allow the monasteries to flourish and allow the monks and nuns to have their freedom is to allow for the seeds for these protests to grow.
And do you have a clip in your show about what they're doing to eradicate the religion?
Well, as the first clip that we showed, I think, is probably the best one. The one that shows about how the I'm sorry. The first clip that we show is probably the best one about the current ban on the Dalai Lama's photos. But historically, ever since the Chinese have been there, they have attempted to destroy the Tibetan religion. And actually, I think it's a widely mispublished fact. People believe that during the Cultural Revolution, the Chinese destroyed almost all of the Tibetan monasteries and temples in Tibet. But actually, it's most people will tell you that those temples were destroyed long before the Cultural Revolution as a way of eradicating the religion. But one of the reasons I chose this clip to show is both because it shows the destruction of a temple, but also because it's one of the shots in the film that was actually filmed inside Tibet, and it's the only shot that we used actors where they're actually having a dialogue. So if we want to show that clip.
Sida emla the combat council chidong gu kyang chung ku chang la kyam ko zle pin do ba ma mo na ti ji ji ko ti pyo gu sim no ba cha chi chi re pa tan da si la pa ti pa ga che kang ba ti tong ay ma chu ne ko bi ji da mi pa tor chin chu ne yo ma ta kyora kar che bra o chi din de cha wo da tan da kyora kar che bra.
Hello again. So, if you were going to summarize for people who, hadn't ever experienced this, or, who wouldn't necessarily, have any idea that the film is at the Crystal Theater, this week, and why would they even want to go and, view it?
Well, I think it's exciting to see the film because it was filmed partly in Tibet, and you get to see shots of current-day Lhasa. And I think that the fact that we use non-actors and that it's based largely on true stories is really interesting. And I feel, and certainly our reviews and most of our audiences have felt as though it's a good story. And I really hope that people can go so that they can learn a little bit more about what's going on inside Tibet today.
And do you think that when you say that this show versus the other more Hollywood shows is done from a political perspective, does that mean that you really want people to get involved in this issue?
Well, I wouldn't say that the film is shot from a political perspective. I mean, we try to show a narrative. It's a story, but we do hope that people will get involved, and we hope that they'll be moved by it. And so in that way, I think it's a little different than it's a little more hard-hitting than the Hollywood films, in that we really want to move people to action.
And speaking of moving people to action, what are some of the things, Toni, that are happening, now, this week, and in the near future on campus around Freeing Tibet?
Well, for the rest of March, we have the Windhorse movie, and also Salt Man of Tibet, which doesn't have any message at all. It's just pretty much shows the beauty of Tibet. It was an approved Chinese film, so it doesn't have any messages at all. But
when you say it's an approved Chinese film,
the Chinese government approved a crew to go in there and make the film, so it's not going to have any kind of message about what's going on with the Tibetans. But those are two films that are coming out of the Crystal. And then in April, we're working on our annual concert called the Freedom Days in Karis Park. It's going to be April 24th. There's about 5 groups on campus that come together for human rights, and we pretty much just sit back, relax, and enjoy music. And the following day is the Panchen Lama's 10th birthday. He is actually the world's youngest political prisoner, and so
how old is he?
He'll be 10 years old this year, and we're going to make nationwide. We're going to make birthday cards and mail them to the Chinese government, in hopes that he'll get them. He probably won't, but either way, we're going to send a message to the government.
So are you doing the birthday cards right now?
Yes, we're going to be starting to make birthday cards very soon.
Okay, and how can people get a hold of you and a hold of the birthday cards that they're making?
They're welcome to give me a call anytime at my home and leave a message.
Okay. You want to tell them?
Yeah, my phone number is 327-0672, and you can reach me there or leave a message.
Okay, and this is Toni. And Panchen Lama, What do those words mean? I mean, for people who aren't familiar with the hierarchy.
The Panchen Lama is the second highest spiritual leader to the Dalai Lama, and he usually takes over when the Dalai Lama is being reincarnated or has not been found yet, and he usually is the one who recognizes the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama does him too. And ever since the Dalai Lama recognized this Panchen Lama, he's been under house arrest and has disappeared, so it's been really hard for us to know anything about him, his family, or the people that found him.
So is he being held in China?
Yes, the Chinese government do say that they have him, but they won't say where or when or anything about where he is.
So is the purpose of the birthday cards to alert people and maybe Amnesty International or whoever to the plight of the Panchen Lama?
Yes, definitely. The Chinese government has actually established their own Panchen Lama in place of the one that the Dalai Lama recognized. So,
is he a Tibetan?
He is a Tibetan, but he's under really strict control of the Chinese government. And there's going to be a documentary film coming out on the Panchen Lama. We're hoping by his birthday that will explain more details about the Panchen Lama.
And his birthday is April 25th?
April 25th.
And hopefully the video will be here?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
And they can contact you about it?
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, good. Good. So the events that are happening continuously on campus, and how long has this group been going, the Free Tibet?
It was established at the University of Montana on September of 96.
September of 96,
yeah.
And you have how many people, how many students are in your group? And
we have about 15 extremely active students who attend our meetings regularly, and then we have a huge list of people that want to be contacted when events are occurring, or just to let them know what we're doing with our meetings and stuff. So
do either one of you know in Tibet how many temples remain?
Out of 6,000, there are 11 temples that remain, but only 6 are functioning. The other ones are now prisons.
Well, they're prisons for the nuns and the
yes,
the lamas who are there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what the priests of the temples are called. But did you actually get to visit some of those places when you went to?
Yeah, a lot of them are being rebuilt, and the Tibetan people themselves have to pay a lot of money to get a permit in order to rebuild their monasteries. So when you go to these monasteries or nunneries, you can see where they were once destroyed, and now they're being used as during the Cultural Revolution, or while they were destroyed, they were used for, I don't know, pigsties or housing cattle, or as, I don't know, public toilets, anything that would directly degrade the sacred ground of the monastery. But now they're slowly being rebuilt, but it's a very expensive and time-consuming process for the Tibetans, because they have to pay for the permits directly to the Chinese government to rebuild them. And but it's good to see that they're making the attempt to try to rebuild the monasteries. But again, the Chinese really control how many monks and how many nuns are allowed to enter the nunneries or the monasteries, and so it's still very, very restricted.
Are they getting help from outside of Tibet? I mean, are Americans helping them with this process?
I think so. I think that in some cases where there's a tie with an American organization, they will send money in. But I don't know. I don't think it happens very often, though.
I don't think it happens very often. It's usually, at least from what I've seen, it's more of what's going on, like with the monasteries outside of Tibet that have been recently established, because those are the ones where most of the monks and nuns are fleeing to, and so they need to try and find rooms and build new areas for them, which is why we had the monks come here. They were trying to raise money for their monastery.
When you say outside of Tibet, where are some of the places that they're building these monasteries?
Predominantly India.
India?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming to our show, and I hope that your tour and your video are a big success and you raise a lot of consciousness across America I don't know, do either one of you happen to know how many different student groups or groups there are across America who are working on this issue?
There's over 350 students for Free Tibet nationally, but we just recently have gone internationally. So.
Well, that's good. And so, once again, if you want to, you can contact the university students for Oh, actually, while we're at it, we can maybe give folks an idea of where some of the other places that your video is going to go from here. I mean,
well, the movie started on the West Coast and will be playing in theaters on the West Coast for the next few months, and on the end of April it will open in New York City on April 30th, and then we'll be showing in theaters all over the East Coast as well. Wow. So, and hopefully it'll open internationally as well.
So when do you hope to be nominated for an Oscar?
Next year.
Next year?
This time next year.
This time next year? So the actress and the actors who are in this, are any of them here in the U.S.?
Yes. The main actress who plays the nun and the main actress who plays the sister are both here in the United States. The story of the sister is largely based on the real-life story of the actress who plays the sister. She was a singer in China. She sang songs for the Chinese government, and she largely just had absolutely no idea about what was going on in her own country. And in 1987, there were a series of serious protests against the Chinese government, and many Tibetans were killed, and hundreds were put in prison. And some of those who were put in prison were her friends, and she went to prison to visit them, and she sort of had a crisis of conscience when she saw what was going on, and she realized that she had been so unaware and so blind to what was going on in her own country. And she very subtly began to sing old Tibetan folk songs and change the words a little bit to have a little bit of a political message. And the government started to question her and to have her under suspicion. And so she had to escape Tibet because her family was coming under suspicion. And she now is a political refugee here in America. She has political asylum.
So is there great danger, did you find, I mean, in doing this film, and possibly danger for the people who were shown in it?
There was great danger for the people. I mean, not great danger in the sense that the people who participated in the film, if they had family in Tibet, if the Chinese government found out that one of their family members had participated in the film, they would have been at great risk. And also, we shot in Nepal, and most of the Tibetans who worked on the film live in Nepal. Nepal is a small country right next to China. It's very much under the shadow of the Chinese government, and so the Nepalese government will not allow Tibetans to do any form of political protest while in Nepal. So we constantly had Nepalese surveillance, and at the end of the film, the Nepali government, luckily we had stopped shooting the day before, but they came to us and said that we had to stop shooting because they'd slowly started to figure out what we were doing. So yes, there was great danger to the people who were involved. They went to great risk to participate in the project, and if you see the film, at the end in the credits, many of the people had their names withheld. Their names don't appear in the credits, it just says name withheld, because they were afraid that it would threaten their family members, or it would not allow them to participate politically in Nepal.
So was there a chance that you would actually lose the film, that the Nepalese government would take it away from you?
Oh yeah, we constantly, after we shot footage, we had a group of Tibetan political activists who were working on the film. So after we shot the footage, they would go hide it. So, I mean, they wouldn't even tell me or the director where they had taken the film. They would go hide the footage, and we took it all out when we could. And yeah, so if the government had caught on a little bit earlier, they could have shut down the whole production.
Did you have to smuggle the film out?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, smuggle it out meaning, you know, someone who wasn't with the production had to put it in their suitcase and not tell them that they had it in there. But
wow. Well, I really highly recommend for everyone, if you haven't had a chance to see this video, it's going to be at the Crystal this week. Please, the Crystal Theater, give them a call. Find out the times. Look in the Independent and find out the times that it is going to be available, and go see it. It's a great new video, and we know Julia's gonna be in the Oscar nominations for the for the coming year. Anyway, some of the things that we're going to be doing in the coming, I guess next week, we're going to be looking at the transportation issues for around Missoula, and I think that that's going to be a very, very hot topic here, besides schools and besides, you know, some of the other things that we've looked at in our show, Buffalo Nations and Light, and, you know, just we're Y2K, yes, I can't forget Y2K. And so now I guess I want to thank MCAT for providing these wonderful facilities for us once again. We're here every Sunday, 8 p.m., and reshown on Monday at 5:30. I also want to thank all of our two wonderful guests this week, Julia and Toni. And while Julia's only going to be here a couple of more days, you can always give Toni a call and find out what's going on with the Free Tibet movement. I want to thank all of our cast members, Philomena and Virginia and Rachel. I want to thank Billy for directing, and Wendy for titling, and Robin for doing the sound this week, and Nan and all of the other support people that we have here helping us with our wonderful show, Centered to the Left. So hopefully this will be the end, and we'll play our credits and everything will be cool.